How's that? Is that level okay? Brad Hooper, the local architect, is sitting just down there. Just before I came on, he said to me, I've sat through presentations of yours before, and my advice is that you say what you're going to say it, remind people what you just said, and then get off. I'm going to ask three things. One, can you really make money from gambling? Two, what might gambling tell us about hope and the future of this planet? And three, how do I talk about such things to my former friend, Mick? Well, gambling. It's true I made livable money from betting, but I was mentored by professional gamblers who taught me to gamble very little, to reduce the odds. And they also taught me never to be an optimist or a pessimist, be a realist. Study the data, the cards you're dealt, or the track information, the horses, the jockeys, all available information. And never, ever fall for the mug gambler's fallacy. Like Mick would come back from the track and say, look at this, I just won $1,000. He'd quite forget that he actually took $2,000 to the race. Never ignore your losses. Actually, I often think people like Mick invest in things like lottery tickets because they're really buying a license to dream. And in gambling, you never dream. But I think Mick's thoughts go like this. And these in the days before the lottery's drawn, he thinks, I'm going to buy a new car and a new house up there at the Paris end of Malden. That's Lowther Street. And I'm going to give $3 million to my daughter and $4 million to my... No, wait a minute, I've got a moral crisis. Should I give $4 million to my son? Or you'll waste it. Now I'd better put it into a trust. But that leaves me with $11 million, and so I can buy the wife some flowers, and I can buy a really big tinny to go fishing on the local reservoir out there at Camco. Actually, I might buy that reservoir too. Now, that's not gambling, that's wishful thinking. There's only one chance in 29 that Mick will win anything at all, and there's a 2 to 3 million to 1 chance he'll win a big jackpot. There's a much smaller chance, 1 in a million, that he'll be killed by lightning in a storm. But that depends on the storms we're going to get in the future. And global warming or climate change was to Mick a sort of unnecessary worry. Mick, incidentally, is not his real name. No, let's call him Mick, surname Orba. And something will turn up is his mantra. He often says that to his partner. Her name is Pollyanna Penrose. And Mick says, hello, Polly. Oh, look at me. I've got a real positive attitude. And thus he loses all his money. You should never go into a poker game with fate or with intelligent people like yourselves. Some of you might be interested in a bit of poker after this evening, perhaps. The one thing you never do is bluff all day. Pretend to yourself that you're holding good cards when you don't. And the sad fact is that we've been dealt, or dealt ourselves, bad cards. Look at the Look at the cards, the evidence from the United Nations documents, so many of them, scientific organisations checked and rechecked, peer reviewed, and even, God help me, investment brokers and insurance company publications. It's all out there, the data. It's just that we never see what we don't want to see. Some global warming is by now baked in, it's inevitable. Nothing can be done. The Paris Agreement at 215 meant that more than 190 countries promised, their hands on their hearts, honestly, to keep global warming below 1.5 Celsius above pre-industrial levels. This year, the National Academy of Sciences and others produced evidence that we're going to hit 1.5 within the next 10 years. And we'll probably hit it within 2 of those years before then. And that's even if we reduced all emissions now, tonight. The rise in sea levels will cause the disappearance of many islands. Increasing rain means the flooding of towns and cities built often in floodplains and in cities built where the rivers meet the sea. Droughts and bushfires, wildfires will proliferate in frequency and density. Pandemics likewise, as diseases and viruses move into new areas and into new species. All in all, there's going to be about 1 billion refugees on the move. Seek food and water, escape wars, diseases, or you and your children will die. What? But yet, something will turn up, says Mick. Something will turn up. That's what he used to say before I stopped talking to him. He'd reduced me to the rage and the grief I often see on the faces of contemporary climate scientists. And what baffles me, and I think baffles them, is the persistence and dominance of the mug gambler's fallacy. Do not ignore your losses. We bet up big, but we lost. And as long, we didn't lose everything, that's the thing. We didn't lose everything, not yet. As long as we cut down on emissions genuinely, and as long as we prepare for the future we know is coming. Where, for example, are the levees against floods? Where are the seawalls being built? Where's the increased spending on health? Where's the army of flood relief workers and firefighters that we need? And not in the future, far in the future. We've got El Nino on our hands next year. It's coinciding with an extraordinary rise in sea level temperatures. We're going to get big time fires. And you can't dump that on the CFA and the army and the soldiers because they can't do it. Governments have failed us, and they'll fail us in the future. Global warming's bad news, and it doesn't win elections. The most notable actions I see about climate change in the current state governments, for example, is that they've brought in huge fines and long imprisonment sentences for climate protesters. In putting this together and in ruminating, I realised it's my moral duty now to get arrested with those young kids. I have no choice. Because in the end, it's up to us. We have to change the conversation. Change the conversation, and for example, I must resume talking to Mick and Pollyanna. Because if enough of us speak out, we can push governments and whatever else it takes into preparing genuinely now for the future. Because if people see things really happening, they will no longer pretend something will turn up. Something won't turn up. The only thing I hope, and I do hope, that'll turn up is human honesty and endeavour and courage. And I won't and I can't shut up, except I'll take Brad's advice. I've said what I've got to say, and now I'm going to get off. Thank you.